All right, great. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, depending on which part of the world you're in. Thanks again for joining our webinar today. It's going to be an exciting session. We're going to get right into it. And to get us started, Terence, I see you are on the call. Would you do those honors of giving us an opening prayer, and then we can get into the business of things?
All right. Thank you, Charles. I hope my voice is coming through fine. Okay, shall we pray? Lord, we thank you so much for this new day. We thank you for the opportunity to have this webinar this morning. We ask that you guide our words, guide our steps, help us to learn a lot, and help us to go out from here ready to transform our businesses. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Once again, thanks everyone for joining. Today's webinar series is largely around AI. I now kind of understand why when you listen to the radio stations, they mention that they need to take a word from their sponsors. And so in the same light, I'll start us off with a bit of information on the sponsor of these webinars, which is the company that I gladly work for. We used to be called Dream Oval. We're now trading as Kauri, specifically registered for SEVN Ghana Limited. But over the period, we've been in business for 16 years and have done quite a number of interesting things, from fintechs to technology. We are certified and licensed by the central bank here in Ghana to operate a fintech service. And we currently have business in a number of countries, including Zimbabwe, Lesotho, and Guinea, and Cote d'Ivoire, starting operations in a short while. So that's a really high level in terms of the organization and the things that we've done. We've worked with quite a number of different industries here in Ghana and across the continent. But the two main focus areas that we operate in is largely in payments and in consulting, right? And so for payments, we largely specialize in, we have our own payment app, but we also provide that as a service, fintech as a service for a number of other organizations as well. In the other arm of our organization is a consulting wing, and we provide technology consulting. We implement solutions. We don't just consult, but we also implement the solutions for our partners. And I've done this quite across a different number of segments, from custom mobile apps to technology solutions for the banking industry, to websites, to custom applications for the ports, and so on and so forth. So we're well in there. 16 years of quite a bit of experience has allowed us to build up a lot of expertise and trust over the period. And so that's a bit of overview in terms of SEVN Ghana, our key lead for this webinar. Now, a little bit more about our consulting wing. We do provide an omni-channel digital banking service. This is largely for the financial institutions, and there are quite a number of clients that leverage the service, including a client that will be speaking today. But we focus largely in our omni-channel solutions by providing digital identity, capabilities, allowing those features to be extended into different channels, from internet, mobile, banking, USSD, especially for low internet areas. A wallet solution that allows for the processing of payments and commissions, and nicely integrated with fraud management and limits, and really ideal for an agency model. And then, of course, what seems to be one of our most popular is merchant acquiring, allowing for the onboarding of businesses and individuals, to provide them with a custom marketplace, so they don't have to go through the pains of building their own portals and so on. And of course, comes nicely integrated with fraud analytics and recounts and settlement, something that we do on the fly as well, right? So the other two items, just as popular, transaction switching. Most on the call here in Ghana are very familiar with sending money to bank via mobile wallet and vice versa. We all perform that kind of service for a number of our providers, and for remittance as well, allowing for termination from mobile money, mobile operators to Ghana, both to bank accounts, and to mobile money wallets as well, right? That's nicely integrated with some kind of AML monitoring tool that allows us to stay compliant, if you will. Right, so a bit of information about our organization and what we do, but you guys are all here for the artificial intelligence webinar, so we'll get right into that, right? We have been running these webinars for a short while, and each month we come up with a different concept. Last month we focused on insurance, but this month and probably next month as well, we'll focus on artificial intelligence. We've kind of broken it into two segments, and so for today's segment, we'll focus largely on payments. And what we're seeking to do by inviting, really great minds from the payment industry, both here in Ghana and from Israel, is to really jump into some of the transformative innovations that have been implemented, and some of the thoughts that are leading the industry, right? And of course, we'll include some best practices in terms of how organizations, not just financial institutions, can leverage the power of AI to enhance how they evolve as an organization. We know that ChatGPT has become very topical, especially in this past year, and everybody's either hooked onto it, especially the students who are looking for smart ways to get their assignments done, to regular business folks who leverage AI for everyday business. But I think there's a lot more to AI. I know when I was growing up, I was fairly afraid of AI because of the Terminator series, but it goes far beyond that. And so today we're going to look at AI and how that helps perform digital transformation in organizations, with a lot of focus on payment for today. So without much ado, I'm going to quickly go into our speakers and introduce them. And so we have two speakers, and of course, yours truly moderating, Jeffrey Dagadu, who is with Stanbic. He'll be focusing largely on AI and customer experiences, and of course, personalization. And then Shani, who's with ThetaRay, would focus largely on how to navigate the compliance requirements within the industry by leveraging AI. And I'm just going to be the mouthpiece helping coordinate everything. All right, so that said, let's get right into it. This is me, myself, and just a quick intro. I am the Chief Delivery Officer here at SEVN. Kari. My job largely is to make sure that things are done, whether it's products or it's projects for clients. My job is to ensure that we deliver on the solutions, right? Keeping in mind that there needs to be a return on investment, both for the client, but also for us. In my idle time, as you can see on the right there, no harm was caused in this photo shoot, but I do like to cycle. I'm an avid cyclist, and I tend to enjoy cycling very avidly, cycling between cities and in different countries in my spare time. One of the things I also spend my spare time doing is providing updates on Google Maps. I'm sure almost everybody here has utilized Google Maps. So I'm one of the moderators on Google Maps, which means that if someone wants to put their business on, actually I'm one of the few that are asked to validate if that's the case or not. So I tend to do that quite a bit. So that's a bit of intro for me. I'll move on to the more substantive speakers. So starting off with Jeffrey, who will be our first speaker. So Jeffrey, a versatile data professional with a lot of experience in data science, governance, and information architecture. I have the pleasure of having worked with Jeffrey for a number of the years, and he's quite the brains. He's currently, and rightly so, the manager at Stanbic Bank Ghana here, and in charge of personalization, business, and commercial banking. Wow, Jeffrey, that's a lot. You seem like a very busy man. He also leads a multidisciplinary insights and analytics team, largely to design and deliver very personalized client conversation capabilities, right? I like the fact that this is largely fused in with data and artificial intelligence, so he's the right person for this conversation. He holds a degree in actuarial science from the KNUST. That specializes largely in disruptive innovation, right? So I think, they chose the right person for the job. Finally, he brings a unique experience and perspective to each project, and this is largely because of his background and his disciplines from finance and data in digital transformation, robotics, and solutions architecture specifically. So that said, Jeffrey, welcome again to the webinar. Thanks so much for honoring us. I will, at this point, just go ahead and hand over to you to regulate, and I'll just help with the slides. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Charles, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I'm excited to be here to speak about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. Providing customized, personalized experiences to customers is something that is really exciting, and I'm happy to be here to share some thoughts in this conversation. So, to be honest, personalization or hyper-personalization, as it's more commonly called, is honestly not just another buzzword. So there are lots of buzzwords going around these days, but I promise you this is not just another one of them. It's really the art of using AI to deliver a very highly personalized experience and content in real time using data at scale to customers at an individual level, irrespective of the device they're using, the channel they're using to engage with you. That personalized experience is what hyper-personalization seeks to do. Customer experience, if you think about it, is really the sum of all the customer experiences across the duration of the relationship with you, right from how they find you as a business, how you attract them, how they interact with you across all your channels. And as a business, you need to mature that relationship and make sure that every interaction gets better as your relationship with the customer grows. So the old school way of personalization, which we typically call segmentation, was where you have a group of customers you cannot meet their needs because those are not your target segments. You have the customers you target, and you typically have different offerings to suit those specific identified customer demographics. But in hyper-personalization, every customer is a segment of their own. So think about it in the sense of you as a service delivery company having to sort of provide a unique experience for every single customer, which is very personalized and meets their very specific needs. It's what we try to achieve with hyper-personalization. Next slide. And it sounds all very fancy, but it's not something that's a new concept. Let's imagine back in the 18th century, there was a hat company called Hansen-Quao. It's actually the oldest hat company in the hat store in the world. It's the oldest shop in London, and it's the 37th oldest family-owned business in the world. They've been around for a long time, and I guess because they perfected the art of personalization. There's a story that goes that somewhere in the 18th century, the customer literally just has to walk to the front of the store and say hat, and then just leave. Once they see hats in front of the store and leave, the shop's workmen would identify who the customer is, know exactly what the customer's preferences are, the hat size, the style of the hats they want, and then will make the hat and deliver it directly to the customer. So personalization is not something that just started even far back in the 18th century. People that were leading the industry at that age, who are still even in business today, were driving that conversation. You can think of the 19th century where bespoke tailoring became a thing. Your tailor knows your exact measurements, knows your precision, and is able to make clothes that will fit perfectly for you. Those days, your relationship with your tailor was a very, very deep one, and it was difficult to just switch. Even in the 20th century, you can think of the various bars and diners who had jukeboxes, and the amount of traffic you got in your diner was largely driven by the variety of the choice music that you have in your jukebox, and every customer will be happy to put in a coin and have their own concert and personalize the music in the bar. And even more recently, Amazon, which is delivering a very amazing personalized shopping experience. You have your own personal store every time you go into the Amazon homepage. You have product recommendations that are really personalized to your unique preferences. And it's like a store that has been built around you. And these are just examples of some of the cool ways that people over the years have used personalization to deliver great customer experiences. I'm sure I'm speaking to the converted, so I won't spend too much time on this, but the numbers the numbers speak for it. Driving personalization will drive the business outcomes that you're looking for. And if you're not convinced, people that are younger than 25 years today, or even much younger, only know digital, and they demand personalization in every interaction. They actually get frustrated if their experiences are not personalized. So we can skip this slide and go to the next one. Awesome. So the business case is quite clear, but now here comes the challenge. Because of how technology has advanced, our customers have too much choice. Imagine moving from shopping in a single mall to having over 1 million products in over 1 million stores right on your 5 or 6 inch device. And that gives you too much choice. There's too much content. I can't keep up with the latest TikTok trends anymore. And there's just not enough time for customers to make their decision. So we need to really be precise in all the engagements that we have with our customers. Bringing that home to the use cases that are available within AI, particularly focused on banking and payments. You can think of location intelligence, how you use the customer's location to personalize the experience with the products and your services that you're offering. The most popular ChatGPT examples using generative AI to really provide that specialized messaging to your customers, using service bots that provide real-time automated service to your customers, even something like call center matching a customer complaints to a specific agent who will have a better skill in terms of addressing that particular problem based on the history of the agent's performance. Something like robo-advisory, using AI to provide specific advices to your customer, fraud detection, analytics, which I'm sure Shani will touch into in her discussion. But the use cases are really endless. The examples of chatbots today that, for example, can tell you are spending too much on entertainment, and if you want to go out, you ask the bot, it will tell you, listen, tonight your budget is only 100 Ghana cedis because you are going over your budget. Imagine AI that could automatically save for you, understanding the trends of your spend. So to distill it into how we get there, I like math, so of course I'm going to add a math equation. This is what I call the customer experience equation. Even though it sounds very complicated, it's very simple to explain everything that we've discussed so far. Every personalized engagement is really about first understanding the customer's individual profile, treating them as a specific individual and not just another customer within a segment. Understand the context of the specific engagements they have with you at the time that they're engaging. A customer who wants to make a payment for DSTV today is not going to only make DSTV payments all the time. Every single time they engage, there's a different context to why they're engaging. And putting those two together, you have the opportunity then to offer a very relevant and personalized offering, which will meet that customer's need at that specific point that they're engaging with you. So let's maybe think about a few practical examples. And Cowrie, the payment app from SEVN, actually does this quite nicely. Quite recently, on a Sunday, I was in church and I got a push notification from the app that said, you can pay your tithe with Cowrie, which is quite very profound if you think about it. You ask the question, how did they know I'm in church? Are they watching me with, like I'm in Nat Geo and watching me with like a lens on my eye? But profile, context, relevant offering. And those sorts of experiences make a customer happy. Think of something else. Imagine you're a coffee lover. You use a payment app. You're always making payments in the morning between 8 and 9 to coffee shops. You travel to a different location and you walk by a coffee shop you didn't know was there. But your payment app understands you as a customer who loves coffee, understands the context that you're in a new city, but you just walked past a coffee shop. And then that coffee shop, for example, happens to be running 20% off drinks that morning. They deliver that exact offer to your phone. That is a personalized experience, which embodies all of this. Imagine in banking, you're a big spender. You spend maybe 30K a month. This particular month didn't go quite well because you had an unplanned spend. You had to pay for your home insurance, and you have your Netflix subscription coming up, but you don't have enough money. The bank understands your individual profile, your spend patterns, understand the context of this month that you had an unplanned spend and you have less disposable income to meet your other subscription needs. Offers you a relevant personalized offering. Says, for example, this month Netflix is on us. So we know that your spend pattern has changed and we are taking your Netflix subscription for this month. That is how you deliver improved customer experience across different products and services. And it doesn't have to be an app. Today, we see it even in physical locations like in Tesla, where you enter your Tesla and you can have your personalized driver profile, which automatically sets everything up for you. So it's really about recognizing the customer, remembering their interactions with you, recommending something that means something to them, and it has to be relevant. So here at Stanbic, there are a number of ways that we are delivering those personalized experiences to customers across our different market segments. And we are not doing this on our own. We work closely with a lot of partners, fintechs and other partners to deliver these experiences. For example, just to say a few, we empower relationship managers today with deep insights on the customers that they're working with. So this provides, it involves providing a 360 view of the customer interactions. And for example, we have a customer 360 solution that we develop in partnership with SEVN Dreamoval, which offers this 360 view to customers, to relationship managers to enhance the way they interact with the customers. It involves automating their day-to-day mundane tasks, automatic scheduling of emails or meetings, and anything that can really take off the load of the relationship managers to make sure that their work is much easier. We also have an insight solution, which is on our self-service portal. What that insight solution does is it uses machine learning to automatically categorize your spend based on the narration of the spend. So rather than you having to push all your spend into the different buckets, whether it was an e-commerce spend, spend in health, spend in retail, the AI solution automatically categorizes that and gives you more insightful information about your spend and helps you make better decisions on your month-to-month spend, and also helps us build a profile about the things that matter to you. And another example is our chatbots, which is one of the common examples in AI service delivery, which is available for you 24/7. You can get things like answers to your questions that are bothering you, check your balance, do transactions, and really just perform banking transactions 24/7 without hassle. So the common theme on all the things that I've discussed so far is that the personalization position is really about people connecting to people, humans connecting to humans. Your business has to be able to connect to the hearts and minds of your customers using AI and technology as the channel. So it's not a technology thing, but at the core of what it is really understanding your customer at an individual level, understanding their different journeys, and leveraging on those opportunities to help them solve for those journeys by the value that you bring to the table. So you might be wondering where to start. This is like a small toolkit of things that you need to get the ground running. The first thing, of course, because it's a very human-centered approach, you need to understand how you are delivering that experience to customers, leveraging techniques like behavioral economics, understanding what makes your consumers make certain decisions, focusing a lot on experience design across all the different customer journeys. And of course, you need a digital fulfillment engine. It cannot be in a traditional way that you're doing business. You have to transform how the customers then fulfill the recommendations that you're looking to put out. The delivery solutions, where you're storing your data, and how you're bringing all of that into one place in CRMs or your core systems, etc. And of course, measurement and optimization. It's very, very important to use an iterative process. Make sure that you continuously test and learn in the entire process. And more high level, these are sort of the things that you need to put in place, making sure that you have a very strong strategic alignment in what you're looking to do. This aligns to your vision, what your business seeks to achieve, and how you expect you to drive value within the industry you're playing. Focusing, of course, on the things that you need to execute, how you build those personalized experiences, how you are designing the experiences for each customer, and then, of course, how you're orchestrating the customer interactions on your different solutions. And, of course, the intelligence, how do you get those insights? Data science is very critical to driving that. So your recommendation engine, your analytics models, how you are combining all your customer data across all a single platform, and then making sure you have buy-in of leadership, the operating model changes that you need, building the technical capabilities, and then driving the culture change. And it doesn't have to be complex. Before you think about all the whistles and bells, you can start small, depending on your current maturity, whether you're a beginner or you're already a leader in this space. It can be something as simple as A/B testing for the messaging that you send. So rather than running a campaign where you send out a blanket SMS to everybody, you segment your customers into different groups. You have group A that receives a particular message, group B that receives a tweaked message, group C that receives nothing at all. That way, you are actually able to measure the impact of the campaigns that you run. And depending on your level of maturity, you can then start implementing more advanced things as you go. But you really don't have to start with like an AI that can automatically wake a customer up if they've overslept. That is not what you need as soon as you start out. So in terms of some of the challenges that you need to overcome on the journey, because this concept is new to a lot of companies, you really need to set up very clear ownership. There's normally a struggle, and next slide. There's normally like a struggle of who should own that within a particular organization, whether it's the marketing teams or the product teams or the sales teams, but you need to identify what works for your company. Basically, you need to personalize your personalization strategy so that you have something that works particularly for you. You need to define your metrics, make sure that you are in tune with the new ways of tracking the customer experience. It's no longer just about revenue, but what value are you driving to the customers? Make sure that you fix all the technology bottlenecks, break all the multiple systems, integrate all the systems together, and work on how you can get additional data to solve for the customer needs. So in terms of the key takeaways from the session, it's evident that leveraging AI is no more a yes or no question. It's no longer just nice to have. It's a must-have for anybody who is looking to survive in this changing world. And it's still a human experience. If you keep your eyes only on the technology, you are bent to lose out on creating that very authentic human experience in how you engage your customers. And then starting is easier than you think. It's really not about the whistles and bells. Start simple, understand your customers, and grow along in that journey. I think for somebody who is starting on the journey, I reckon it's much easier than another business who already has like legacy systems in place which are harder to break. So starting is actually easier than you think. And the customers are really not worried about the data that we have. They only get angry when we don't use that data to enhance the experience. So make sure that the data that the customers have entrusted you with is used to make their experience with you across every touch point a better experience for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Very, very insightful. I do like that last point. I always wondered what they do with my data, very much how I wonder what they do with my taxes. But I think for the data is important in terms of how that is leveraged, right? It has to make meaning. It has to make sense. I dislike getting messages that are irrelevant for me as a customer, especially as a banking customer. But yeah, I completely couldn't agree more with you on that. So thanks a lot. So our guests who are on the call, please feel free to drop in your questions on the chat. We have a QA session that will be asking questions. I hope that you guys are going to put in some questions. Jeffrey's asked me specifically not to give him hard questions, so please put in the hard questions in the chat there, and then we'll have a QA session just for that. For now, I will move on to our second speaker, and then for the once we've gone through that, we will then, my apologies, we'll then come back through the Q&A. So please drop in your questions or your comments. I've seen a few comments in there, so that's great. We'll definitely have a moderator session and we'll unpack that some more. I like that someone already agrees with Jeffrey, but we'll get started with this. So next up is Shani. Shani has a 20-year experience in the financial industry. I almost said she's, her career spans longer than some of our product lines, but I guess that speaks to her expertise. But she began her journey with Citibank, where she served in different roles, from project delivery to product development. And as a result of that, she kind of excelled, becoming, an eventual mastery in the industry around payments and banking. And so after 11 years, I think she then moved over to Bank Hapoalim, I think is the way it's pronounced, a local bank in Israel, where she became the CIO of strategy advisor, looking at quite a number of items from budgets to delivery of successful projects for a specific bank unit, right? And then from there, moving away from this traditional sector from Citibank and from Bank Hapoalim, came into ThetaRay, where she is now, and her work there involves, working with companies in the digital transformation journey, which is very in line with what we do here at SEVN. So they're a great partner for that. She's clearly very passionate about her role and believes that their mission is really to create a trusted payment network. And I think I really, really agree with that, especially in the light of compliance and fraud and all of that. I think that's a great place. It makes the world a better place to live in. Beyond her illustrious career, she's currently married to Asaf and a mother of 3 teenagers. In her younger years, she was world athletic champion in short distance running. Imagine that. That's pretty awesome. So I think that, for someone to be a Usain Bolt in her days, if you will, goes to speak a lot about her unyielding spirit. And so with that intro, Shani, thank you so much for joining us. I will hand over the reins to you so you can take us through your presentation on how we detect AI or use AI to detect financial crime. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. Let's start with a short video, please. Charles, there is no voice.
The largest single source of foreign direct investment into Africa. The remittance into the continent is about $84 billion as of last year, 2022 December. Ghana alone is about 4.2, 4.7 billion. And this is mainly transactional. Household to look after families. That $200 from a month is taking care of mom, dad, siblings. It's very important that as we bring the money in, we make sure that it's coming in the right way. So that's where the ThetaRay partnership comes in. Before, we got to go into a bank to wait and pick it up. It was very exposed to fraud and exploitation. And digital has really changed the landscape. Today, you have funds coming to you on a real-time basis. You have families being taken care of on the need-to basis. The improved compliance platforms is what is making these things more and more possible, because there's a lot more safety. Otherwise, we're opening the floodgates to a lot of problems. Using artificial intelligence, we're able to bring a lot of meaningful sense to compliance following the money, because you can understand the behaviors, you can profile the receivers, you can profile the senders, you can even profile the actual companies that send the money, to be able to determine if they are opportunistic or they are being exploitative, if they are breaching money laundering rules and programs around the world. You see a superior platform. It means you can process transactions faster. We're processing more, and decisions come in nanoseconds. And AI is really the best way to be able to do that. The remittance senders are able to send to receivers directly. That means that households are being looked after on a real-time basis. If I live in New York, I can send my daughter $20 for the day for school. You can start to also look after families from a health perspective. So it's a lot of economic empowerment. When you have very strong platform partners like ThetaRay, financial inclusion is not just enabled, but also has innovation. It makes it safer. So I really think that the partnership that we formed with ThetaRay is really going to take us to the next level. We're opening mobile money licenses in about 5 more additional markets over the next quarter. So yes, 23 million transactions last year. This year might be about 40 million. That's what financial inclusion is about.
Well, then shield to you, Shani, to take over. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just if you could please move to the next slide. Next one. Yeah, thank you. No, yeah, thank you. So you heard just now Andrew, his ZPay CEO. I'm sure some of you know this company in Ghana. He touched in one point related to financial inclusion, but actually it's only one angle of how AI can contribute to our compliance processes and business growth. The wider picture actually is the criminals that becomes more and more sophisticated. They know our thresholds, they know the patterns that we are looking for, and they are actually act below the radar. That's actually caused the regulators in Ghana, but all over the world, to frequently change the control, the requirements and the control that the financial institution needs to adopt. This frequent change actually creates difficulties within the existing compliance tool, which are most of them based on rules. In the past, many years ago, West Africa was considered as a money laundering heaven, but that's caused Ghana government and regulator to nationally prioritize the fighting in financial crime, not only to protect the Ghana citizens, also to contribute to the global knowledge, to share with the best practice, processes, technologies, tools, etc. And therefore, Ghana is now considered as a very early adopter of compliance AI within the all Africa continent. And since 2021, the FATF even welcomed Ghana with the significant progress improvement in the AML control. So in the next slide, I want to show you the different AI technologies in the market and how each one of them can help you to do better and to improve your processes. So obviously, many companies will tell you that they do AI. This is the very, hard buzzword. So I want to, in a few minutes, lead you through the different type of solution, and maybe you can take it and moving it to the next level. So in the left-hand side, you see rule-based solution that is no AI related, and many financial institutions all over the world still use rules, predefined rules, very strict rules, straightforward, with a yes/no answer to monitor their transactions. Now it's considered as a very traditional way to monitor your transaction because it has a very close frame, right? You will detect only suspicious activity, which is part of the rules that you predefine. This is one challenge that rule-based solution creates. Another challenge is that you need to predefine all the thresholds, the bias, the scenarios. And because I already mentioned that the regulators are frequently change their control, it's something that's an endless process that you always need to maintain it. Using rule-based solution creates a lot of alerts, high number of alerts, and most of them, I can tell you from my experience that the practice in the market that is more than 95% of the alerts that rule-based solution generates are false positive alerts. So take an example of 100 alerts, 95 of them are very legitimate transaction. This caused the compliance, and I do hope that we have compliance people here, compliance management departments, employees, to actually focus on not relevant alerts, to spend their time not efficiently. And it's create a workload when you get so many alerts. So this is from operational point of view, efficiency point of view, but the most important thing as I see it is the risk coverage. When you use rule-based solution, you actually have what we call the unknown area. The scenarios which none of us are really aware of. And in some cases, as I mentioned before, criminals that are acting below our radars and we cannot catch it. So this is where the real risk is. And all the unknown parts, things can never be detected by rules. It's something that needs to be handled by a more sophisticated solution. And when I'm saying more sophisticated solution, obviously I mean to AI. So even within the AI, there are different levels of AI. Between the rule-based solution and the AI supervised machine learning that you can see on the screen, there is an in-between solution, which actually the core engine of generating suspicious activities alert is still rules, as I just explained. But companies realize that it's no more relevant. So what they did, they actually developed an AI algorithms on top of the rule-based engine to improve the rules results and to prioritize the alerts. This is of course much better. You see the scale, each technology that I will describe now getting better and better, but still the core engine and brain of generating alerts, it's rules. So you will never be able to detect the unknowns one, and you will still handle many alerts with a high ratio of false positive alerts. Moving to the next generation, I will call it, of the AI, it's called supervised machine learning. Supervised machine learning actually means that you as a user, that the business analyst, that the compliance person need to supervise the machine. So in day zero or day one, they will feed the system with initial labels, and then the system will start generate alerts based on these labels. Now the user, for each alert, needs to actually feed the system with his knowledge or with his feedback. So just for example, to tell the system, this is a very good alert, a true positive. I do think that it's a suspicious and illegit transaction because of ABC reasons. Or the other way around, I do think that this is a false positive alert because of XYZ reason. And actually what the AI supervised machine learning do in such case is actually gather or collect all the feedbacks from the user and fine tune the algorithm. So obviously 100%, it's much better than rule-based solution, but it still creates some challenges. You will be surprised to hear. One of the challenge is that it takes time to train the system. Think about it. All your knowledge you need to put into a system. It takes time. It can take even a year. So this is the first challenge. Second challenge, that if you feed the system with your knowledge, you are still exposed to the unknown part. So obviously from false positive perspective, you will reduce the false positive from 95% to around 50-60%, which is significant improvement, but still you will be exposed to a risk. So this is one kind of AI. The next one, which is the most sophisticated in the market, it's called unsupervised machine learning. I believe you can already guess that means that the user don't need to supervise the machine. So how it actually works, the machine actually extract all the data, or we push the data to the machine, and the machine has the ability to learn the normal behavior of the users by itself. For example, I will feed the system with 1 year historical data to cover seasonality, and then the system will know how many payments I do in a month, what is the range of the value of my payments, what is my salary, my bills, etc. It's the frequency and many other risk indicators that related to my profile. Now, once the system defined the normal behavior profile of each one of us, and obviously each one of us has different profile, then the system also has the ability to detect any outlines behavior or any abnormal behavior. Now, the advantage of this kind of technology is that it does not have any bias or limitation. It simply learns by itself the normal behavior and then detect any abnormal behavior. So first thing, the training process will be crazy fast. And when I'm saying fast, I mean few hours. It's not even more than a day, because it's actually based on historical data. That's one. Second, it dramatically reduced the false positive to the around 30% from the 95% in the rule base, because Again, there is no any bias and limitation, and the system alert on abnormal activities of each one of us. So this is the uniqueness. And it has the ability to detect the unknown because, again, it has the liberty to simply tell us this is a suspicious activity without sticking to a specific thresholds or bias or scenarios, patterns, anything that we used to do in the past. Just to share with you that in ThetaRay solution, what we do is we actually integrated all these capabilities. So the core engine of generating alerts is the unsupervised layer, but obviously for not sophisticated cases, you don't need AI to tell you that country X is a high-risk country. It's a very yes and no and not too much sophisticated insight. So you can use also rules. And also for companies that obviously needs to do this transformation from rules to AI. So using both, I will call it aspects or abilities, will put these kind of companies in a very confident, safe zone place where they still keep using some of the rules they used to, but also have the unsupervised machine learning to generate more accurate alerts, more smart alerts, and significantly reduce the false positive alerts. Next slide, please. So yeah, looking ahead. So we know, as I mentioned, regulators frequently changing the controls that the financial institution required to follow. Now, these frequent changes required better solution, more sophisticated solution, more innovative solution. That's the only way today financial institution can create trust within their business. Trust is super, super, super important, not only for your client, obviously your clients are the first, but also to create partnership and not to be de-risked from the network. So you don't want to have a bad reputation. You want all the world to know that your network, your platform are fully trusted and secured, and that you are doing all what you can and using the best solution in the market to prevent and to detect suspicious activity. So trust, it's something that it's very important these days, and you can get it, you can enrich it with using better and AI actually tools. This will help you, will support your business growth, because trust brings obviously clients, brings partnership, and a very good reputation. Next one, please. So how you can actually do much more with less operational efforts. So as I mentioned, if one of you now or in the future evaluate different solution in the market for transaction monitoring solution. So please bear in mind the slide that I talked before about the different AI technologies in the market. Please bear in mind that the unsupervised machine learning, only vendors that use these technologies are the best in the market. There are few that's doing it, obviously not only us. And this actually will help you from two aspects. First aspect, risk coverage will be much, much better. As I mentioned, the ability to detect the unknown, and the integrated capabilities of rules, of unsupervised and supervised machine learning. All these actually give you what you need and give you the solution to different types of risk. Also, network analysis, it's something that only AI can do in a very good way, because rule-based cannot really found links and connections and network between people, between countries. And this is where the real money laundering activity is, because money laundering activity or terrorism funding or human traffic are not kind of crimes that's been done in one shot, in one transaction. It's always a network. Network and link are something that AI can do much better than rule-based solution. And from operation point of view, when you use AI, so 100% you will have the ability to improve your operational processes, to be more efficient, to manage more accurate alerts, to reduce the number of alerts that you manage, and also to save time in the investigation process, because you have all the information you need. That's part of the AI capabilities, to have a better and faster investigation process. So this is it. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Shani. So again, folks on the call, on the webinar, please feel free to drop in your questions for our speakers, and we'll gladly answer them. We are moving into the Q&A session, right, where we'll moderate, and then we'll fire our speakers some questions. Now, in respecting of time, we will end the webinar officially in about 8 minutes time. However, the speakers and myself are happy to stay on a little longer, just to draw a bit more, answer additional questions, or just contribute some of the comments that have been made. So we'll get started. And then getting towards the top of the hour, we'll wrap up and then allow those who need to get back to regular business to do so. All right, so let me start off. I struggled really hard to find a very difficult question for Jeffrey. Since he was the first speaker, I will start off with him. And so, Jeffrey, I had 2 questions for you, and I know there are a number of questions in the chat as well, one of which you've answered to. But I'm going to ask a question from the point of view of you as a banker, right, and as an implementer, and then another one from the point of view of a customer. So for you, as a manager of implementing such solutions, right, what do you think has been the biggest uphill task when it comes to either choosing or implementing AI-based services for the bank?
Okay, so I think for me, the biggest challenge I would say is really getting the data right and getting it all in one place. So working in institutions that have existed way before the concept of personalization and AI really became like something that was a thing. Data hasn't really been, wasn't really the forefront of the business strategy at that time. So working with legacy systems to sort of prepare them for this future is one of the biggest hurdles that we're implementing. But thankfully, the solutions that we can use to fix them are even embedded within AI. So understanding patterns within the data, seeing if you have incomplete data of the customer, how to, for example, rather than going back to the customer to ask them, look back at the onboarding document that is submitted, leverage on OCR to fetch that data directly from the information the customer gave you, understanding beyond what they've given you to see what else you can sort of fetch beyond just the demographic data the customer has given you. But I'd say the biggest challenge in Samantha is fixing that legacy data, making sure that it's good enough to give very contextual and a right and meaningful recommendations to the customer. And
may I expand that a little bit more to ask,
sure.
With the legacy data, is that as a result of poor customer data that's been provided, or just the way that data has been structured in the past towards new systems?
Yeah, so I think it's a bit of both. So for example, today at the point of collecting customer data, we have delivered online onboarding solutions, which is one of the biggest issues with what has been in the past as a way to fix this problem. So in the past, you have a customer fill out a physical onboarding document in writing, and then you have an agent then translate that onboarding document information, KYC information into a system, and errors tend to happen in that translation. So fixing things across that journey, for example, like putting the power in the customer's hands to be able to provide that document directly, and for example, eliminates like a huge chunk of the errors in that process. So it's mainly been around the processes that we use to collect the information and the importance that we the emphasis that was put on getting it right. So, for example, in the past, maybe email wasn't something that was very important, but in these days, we do email and phone number verification as part of the onboarding process, so that we are sure that we are engaging the right customer when we are sending those personalized offerings.
All right, great. I had my second question to ask, but I'll pause on that and I'll ask that a little later, just so I can also quiz Shani before I open the floor for everyone else. So Shani, there are a number of questions on the group chat as well, but let me just read maybe my question, and then we can come back to picking up some of the ones on the call here, right? So, I think, especially for those of us in the industry, right, the biggest compelling reason for leveraging specific tools is always going to be compliance, right? Because your regulator wants to make sure that, there's a healthy financial ecosystem. And by virtue of that, we'll have guidelines or policies or requirements that, certain organizations have to meet. So I think my question for you is, if you step away from, say, compliance from a regulator point of view, right, what do you think for ThetaRay has been the most compelling reason why businesses would essentially leverage an AI-based solution, right? Especially when those businesses have not had issues in the past, right? So if you can maybe expand on that, that'll be great.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Charles. So first of all, I will start from the end. Maybe the reason that these financial institutions didn't have any issue in the past is because they didn't detect all the suspicious activity in their network, which is not always a good sign that you don't have, I will call it challenges or illegit transactions that you discover in your network. It's most probably point on the fact that if everything okay, so most probably you are doing something wrong. This is my personal perspective. But to get back to your main question about how it's leveraged the business growth. So obviously in any financial institution, there is always a balance between the compliance and the business growth. Compliance will be looked as a blocker, if I may call it, not so politically correct this way. And obviously the business people, we want to run very fast and ignore all the controls. Now, when you have very efficient and powerful AI solution, you can follow all the control you want as a compliance manager, but do it in a much efficient, effective, and faster way. So first of all, you will not be focused on non-relevant alerts because you will get all the relevant alerts and real suspicious activity. So all the ones that you used to manage before until you release the process and you release the transaction and approve it, they will be, most of them will be released immediately. And the ones that the system will alert on, that these are the real suspicious ones, and that your process is very efficient. And as I mentioned, also taking into consideration other capabilities that you can benefit and utilize from the AI, like the network visualization and things like this. This will help you to do the compliance job much better, much faster, and in a more efficient way, in such a way that you will support the business growth. You will prevent all the illegit transaction, but the ones that are accurate and legit, you will be able to release it very, very fast, even faster than before.
All right, great. Thanks for that. I do have a follow-up question, but at this point, just respecting everyone's time, we have come to the top of the hour. I'll wrap up on the webinar in terms of the remaining items of the agenda. I have to go back and essentially, honor the organization that's pushing these webinars. But we have come towards the end of the webinar. We will stay on right after this short recap of our organization to answer the questions that I have, but also the ones that have been posted on the group. So please stay tuned. And those that need to drop off to continue business, we respect that. So thanks again, everyone, for joining such a great, incisive webinar. It's been brought to you by Kari, trading as Kari. We used to be called Dreamoval, but we're now trading as Kari. Now, over the last 16 years, our organization has specialized in both fintech solutions, but also consulting solutions, certified by the central bank to provide financial technology solutions, not just for the banking industry in Ghana, but it allows us to then extend some of those services that we have done in other jurisdictions, from Ghana, leaping out of Ghana, our headquarters, to Zimbabwe, Lesotho, doing business in Cote d'Ivoire, and ready for even more business in the likes of Guinea and so on, right? Nicely ISO certified, PADS as we do take, and I saw a question that was coming earlier, how seriously do we take data protection? PADS, but also the Data Protection Act guidelines in Ghana, help us remain very, very compliant around those, and we're regularly audited around that. So one of the final things I'd like to say is around our consulting wing. And as you've seen from the presentation so far, there are a number of synergies that we cross in terms of the services we provide. We do have the SEVN Grid, which is a omni-channel digital platform, allows both banks and other financial institutions, insurance, microfinance, and the likes, to leapfrog their solutions and their offerings to their customers. And on your screen here, we have quite a number of different services. One of the items that Jeffrey spoke about in his presentation was a challenge around onboarding. And obviously, we provide such a solution both for Stanbic, especially for Stanbic Zimbabwe, onboarding solutions that allows them to uniquely capture KYC information, but nicely tied into the national database. So the customer only enters their ID, and then therefore everything else then fetched into the system for them to validate, right? So these are quite a number of different services that we provide as an organization. Feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to speak business and more. But with that said, I will come right back and thank you all once again for participating in this webinar. Our next webinar will be next month, and I think there will be a part 2 of AI. There seems to be a really high demand, and we'll move away from the payments industry and look at other segments, education, design, products, and so on. But we'll be on the lookout for that invitation. So coming right back to the Q&A, there were a number of questions that were being asked, and I think I'll honor the time and jump into the group chat. Jeffrey, there was an initial question that was asked to you, really around, the financial inclusion bit. I did see that you provided an answer, and for those who have missed it, the question was, what would you say about financial inclusion on the opportunities that are available in Ghana, right? And have we, I guess, as a country or also in Africa, done enough to push the digital revolution era? Jeff, I know you provided an answer. Would you maybe want to speak to a few things?
Okay, sure. And thank you for the question, Joseph. I think in terms of Africa and Ghana, particularly in the mobile payments industry, we've set the pace across the entire world. The use cases of mobile payments across Africa have really set the pace. I'd say that what the future then will look like is cementing that experience beyond payments. And I see a lot of it happening even already today, where you have other products, like even within Kari, for example, you have insurance layered within existing payments apps. You have other financial services beyond payments, which is what is going to really grow that. There was a recent report, for example, that estimated financial inclusion to Ghana at around 96%, and it's largely because of the inroads of the competitive cooperation between banks, telcos, and fintechs to really drive that industry and enable mobile payments. So we've made quite a lot of progress, but there's still more that can be done in that space.
Great, thank you. I think that was Kobina who asked that question. So thanks for the question, and that was the feedback that you got. There was another one as well. This one's for Jeffrey. Then we'll come to Shani. Which is, I understand personalization would improve user experience. However, over personalization could also limit the user's exposure to new experiences or even options, right? So Daniel would like you to provide, some advice on how to strike a really great balance between personalization without restricting the user options.
Okay, sure. And thanks, Daniel, because this is actually a very, very big risk that you've highlighted. So we do not pretend that we are going to be able to predict exactly what the customer wants every single time with 100% accuracy. So to that point, the personalization or the recommendations are more prescriptive than rather forcing out the other things that are within your service offering. So the way you strike that balance is that aside from the recommendations that you give, you still have to improve the experience around how the customer prospects your other service offerings. So I'll give an example. So somewhere like Netflix, right? So aside from your personal recommendations, which then pop up, you still have like different sections, which for example, show you new content that just come out. You see all the other categories that you can choose from. So the balance then would be that first just show what you're recommending, but still provide that experience that the customer can still prospect in your other service offering. And another way to do this is to ensure that you really keep that feedback loop working. So the customer should always give you feedback in terms of maybe this doesn't really work for me, and what you do with that feedback matters. So back to the same Netflix example, you can tell them, for example, I really didn't enjoy this show, and that sort of feedback helps the diversity of the recommendations that you get. So providing that experience not only for what you are pushing out there, but fixing how the customer also explores and prospects the other things that you have on offer will be the best way to balance to make sure you don't over personalize.
Great, thanks. Just before I move to Shani, there was a comment by Ayoko that I completely agree with. And what Ayoko said was, though she disagrees slightly with the point around leveraging customer data. She mentioned that while we're happy when data is used to enhance the experience, but it's equally important that we believe that the data is protected. And I think the key word from here is the word believe, right? One of the reasons why I am an Apple, an ardent Apple user, outside of the user experience is actually because of how much noise they make around data privacy, right? Indeed, they were even in the news about a couple of years ago when the FBI wanted to, get data out of a phone, and they were unwilling to provide that data or access for the FBI. And so, that gives business a lot of confidence in terms of how their data is being utilized. Some jurisdictions more than others take data privacy more seriously in terms of how the regulators require that. I know in Ghana we have the Data Protection Act, for which kind of guidelines how we keep data, how we leverage it, and indeed how long we can keep data for. So I'm just just resounding what you said. I completely agree with that. I think it's always important, not just. I think the word "to believe," right, is to know that the companies are taking the efforts to protect the data. And not necessarily leveraging it with third party that we don't know about, right? It was a bit odd for me. I don't know about you guys. It was a bit odd for me when I was browsing a particular website and then I move into a mobile app, then I see ads from that website. It was a bit unnerving. But these are the kind of experiences that kind of take away and maybe even raise questions in terms of the security around more intelligent solutions that are powered by AI. So thanks, Erica, for bringing that up. So Shani has been in the cold seat. Let's move her into the hot seat a little bit here. And great. We actually start off with another question by Ayoko. Her question, Shani, to you was, what kind of unsupervised learning techniques, right, are being used, I think, in the solution that you profess? You mentioned you had unsupervised and supervised learning. She wanted to understand the techniques that are used for this unsupervised portion of it.
Sure. And during my answer, I will also answer James' question. So I think it's one big picture of. So unsupervised actually means, as I mentioned, but I will deep dive into that, that you don't need to predefine any model, James, related to your question. So actually how it works, we take the client historical data and define together with the client what we call risk indicators. Risk indicators are the subject or the titles that the compliance wants to detect. It's not a fixed parameter that we put into it. I will give an example. Volume, value, turnover between incoming and outgoing payment, suspicious keywords. All these are the risk indicators, the subjects that we define to the system, but without the parameter in it. I'm not defining what is the suspicious volume or what is the suspicious value. Now, what the system does actually learn the normal behavior for each and each risk indicator. So what is my transaction volume in every week and month, and what is the average transaction value and the total value and the turnover between and many, many, many more. So actually, you don't need to adapt new AI models. The only thing you might be need, and it's very, very, very rare, is to add a risk indicator, another subject that you want the system to learn, and then to detect in case there is any abnormal activity. So this is how the unsupervised layer actually works. It's based on historical data, the very sophisticated more than 20 algorithms that our founders developed after more than 15 years of research. And this actually gave us the ability exactly to move out from the ongoingly updating models and patterns and thresholds. It actually has the liberty or the capability to simply learn the normal behavior based on the context, based on the risk indicators that we put into the system, and detect any illegit transactions. So I do hope that I answer both questions.
Great, thanks for that. And I think I saw a third question. I know you answered James, and then you also answered Ayoko's question. But there was a question around how complex is it to implement the technology, right? From the perspective, from the time perspective, I think is the key. And where you see the bottlenecks around implementation. So maybe I'll have you answer this, and then, Jeffrey, I think this can also apply to your end as well, since you're rolling out products. I'll leave the question for you both to answer. Thanks.
Sure. So actually, it's a great question because it's another thing that distinguish between the AI and the rule-based solution. So in rules, as you all know, you need, as I mentioned, you need to predefine the rules, to adjust it, to maintain it, to test it. It takes a lot of time. Again, based on my experience in the market, I'm hearing about rule-based solution that takes more than a year to implement. Obviously, it depends on the company size, obviously. But when you use the AI unsupervised machine learning, as I mentioned, all we need is just to get your historical data. That's it. From there, it will be 1, 2, 3 meetings of discovery with the compliance people to actually fit the relevant risk indicators to your business, to your risk appetite, to the territories that you're operating in, and that's it. So from technology point of view, we only need API to push the data. From compliance point of view, we need to define the risk indicators, which is a mission that is very, very, I will call it easy, because we have our experience and obviously the customer bring their experience. So risk indicator, it's something that's almost ready. And then you start testing. You have the data, the system learn by itself the normal behavior based on the risk indicators that we decided that are relevant to the customer, and you start getting results. I can say that specifically in ThetaRay, the average implementation time for small, medium companies, it's 4 to 6 weeks. And all these 4 to 6 weeks is mainly for the compliance to review the alerts, and then maybe if we need another cycle to adjust. For tier 1 banks that we work with, most probably it takes more, but it can take 8 or 10 weeks. But even for banks, it's a very, very fast to value process. So also this very different when you are going to choose rule-based solution or when you're going to choose AI-based solution.
Jeff, you want to take a go at it?
Okay, sure. And I think Shani hit the nail right on the head. The power that AI gives really accelerates the pace in terms of how quickly you can move in terms of delivering these sorts of solutions. I like to think of it in terms of what the limitation of our human mind is. If you see at the core of what AI and machine learning models do, I think of it as transitioning from a linear regression problem where you have variables on your Y and X versus like a 3-variable problem where you have an X, a Y, and a Z variable. From that point, your mind cannot see beyond that, but the computer is able to go to the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the nth dimension to really take all the different features you have to build out a model that does a prediction. So because the AI models are able to pull in data at that scale, look at multiple variables of a customer at one point and give you an outcome which is near close to a good accurate response, it really shortens that time. And completely agree with Shani's points. Most of the time will then be spent on removing things like your biases, make sure that there are no inherent biases in what you've done. So the housekeeping side takes more time than actually building the technology, making sure that your governance, your compliance, everything is belted down. But in terms of the actual implementation of some of these solutions, AI makes it much quicker than you can imagine.
Excellent. I do see that there's one more question on the chat. I will have us wrap this Q&A session up in about 2 minutes, so the rest of everybody else can get to the regular programming for the day. There's a lot of conversation around AI, and I think we've really done a great job to the speakers, really showing the experiences that you guys have had, but also the solution that you've worked on in the past, and trying to find a meaningful way of bringing that in terms of everyday use, right, from banking to compliance and so on. And since you guys have taken the glory, let me also give a little glory here for Kari in terms of what we're coming up with when it comes to AI. Let me give a bit of context. So back when COVID